Tanya, where does your story start?
Well, the story of entrepreneurship began when I was 5 years old, but
5?
yeah, just 5. I started entrepreneurship when I first moved to Edinburgh because I've grown up in Tanzania. I was born in Kenya, lived in Tanzania for the first 5 years of my life.
Yeah.
So the whole reason we moved was for educational purposes. My family really believe in that a good education will set you up for the rest of your life, and you have to have that foundation set. So my brother was doing his IB at the time, and he's 7 years elder to me, so education was a top priority for him whilst I was just 5 years old. But in Tanzania, we had both our mum and dad. My father had his own brewery and his own company. So when we decided to move, it was just my mum, my brother, and I. So it kind of split up the family. My dad was kind of working on that company back in Tanzania whilst we were in Edinburgh. And that placed a lot of financial strain on our family because you had to run 2 homes. It was just the home in Tanzania, and then completely moving to the UK, which is already so expensive. In fact, comparing to Tanzania, it's quite a large difference. So my dad was working twice as hard to kind of do it.
Edinburgh as well.
Edinburgh as well is very expensive. But my mum prioritized also safety, and Edinburgh is beautiful and it has all of that. So essentially, after maybe that first year when we were separated, in that sense, like geographically, I really understood the financial struggles that they were going through at a young age. Subconsciously, I don't think I ever presented it saying that I understand we're in financial struggles.
At what age would you say?
That was probably 5, 6.
Oh my God.
6.
Oh, wow.
Subconsciously, I knew. I recognize it now. But looking back on it, I can see it, but I didn't know that at the time.
Did that result in any auctions in a way?
Yeah, so when my dad came, he finally sold the business in Tanzania, came here, and we were struggling to find a job, so they bought their own convenience store in Rose Street, which you might know. I'm not sure. It's basically city centre of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And that was my first entrepreneurial adventure. Was I would bake cookies and dip fruit in different types of chocolate, and I'd sell it outside the store.
Wow.
I didn't know.
5 years old?
Yeah, like 6 maybe. 6 at this age, probably.
I was 6. I don't know what I was doing.
I think I was eating Legos and stuff. Honestly, I would not be. But 6 years old, and it's not you baking.
So my mum would help me bake. She'd buy the ingredients. Then they'd teach me the foundations of business. They'd say, actually, I want 30% of this because I bought all the ingredients, so you got to pay me back. And then they'd tell me, make sure you calculate, this is like the rent of the land. You're using our land. How does that account for the costs? So eventually I got 50% of the profits taken away to give it to my parents. But it was a learning lesson. And that's, I think, been instilled in me from a very young age. So I'm very grateful for that. But that was probably the start of my entrepreneurial adventures.
That's amazing. That's literally the most unique story I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Everyone's story is individual, but that particular one. And it seems like your parents did almost teach you business from a young age. Would you say that was more like your dad's side because he had the brewery, or your mum's side, or a bit of both?
I would say a bit of both. My dad definitely had that business, and he was building businesses, and he had that whole process of working in one. But it was my mum that pushed that business side out of me because I think there's 2 sides of business. There's that practical approach, but there's also the mindset of business. You have to be an entrepreneur. I don't believe everyone can be an entrepreneur. I feel like everyone can be maybe managers, but to actually build a business and take that creative side, you need a type of personality and a type of skill set. Yeah. And my mum had brought that skill set out of me, whilst my dad was quite laid back. He didn't really mind that much. He was telling me, if you have any practical questions with building a business, I'll teach you. But it was my mum that was the main driver in saying, well, this is what you need to be to become an entrepreneur. If you want to become an entrepreneur, the world is like this, and we're going to teach you these skill sets that will help you.
Wow. Oh, wow. So whenever you're 5 or 6, you did this. You learned a lot of different lessons. You learned how money isn't just freely available, because I feel like, especially as kids, being that young, it's like, why can't I get this sweet? Why can't I get this needle?
Exactly.
It's like, there's no consciousness of my parents work really hard for this. Whenever you start growing up, was this something that you kept on pursuing, or was it something that you kind of just knew that money is very valuable, this entrepreneurship, that you didn't really explore it further?
That's a great question. I mean, there was times when I was growing up that I asked for pocket money, and they were like, no. They was
Way to learn.
And I think, it's interesting. Pocket money teaches you the skills of money and everything, but I don't think we've never really had that conversation about money with our family. It's more that value what you have and make sure you make the most out of what you have. I think with spending, I wasn't much of a spender anyway, so I didn't think they had to teach me that lesson. If I was spending loads of money, I reckon they would have. But maybe it's that same subconscious feeling of when I've moved from Tanzania to Edinburgh, I've noticed the value of money subconsciously, and that's just meant that I don't spend as much to this day. But even with spending in Edinburgh and going out, I think you just learn through different experiences.
Definitely, because it seems like where you started, when most people start their entrepreneurial journeys from like personal experience, it seems like that move from Tanzania really opened your eyes, I'd say, to almost the real world, how it actually works. People don't understand that until like they become 20, 30 years old. Like that's a really valuable thing to have. And the fact that your mum almost pulled this creativity out of you is really, really important, I think, an important stage in your life. But where does it go from there? So you're doing your, almost, was it a bake sale almost?
Yeah, a little bit of like just pop-up stand outside, selling some, I mean, like also
mini
extended,
side hustle.
Yeah, mini side hustle, and you know, extended to loom bands and selling loom band bracelets. And
those are the days.
Those are the days, guys.
Those are back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did do that. I think maybe a few summers potentially, expand my, diversify the goods that I had to offer, and from there, I never really thought about business or entrepreneurship at all. Like I was stuck in that system of education where
like
you're following exams, you go to school, you come home, you do your homework, you sleep, you maybe it's the same cycle every single day. And then there was a time where I was getting compared to my brother, saying my brother works so hard and you're not doing anything, you're just you're not studying, you're not doing anything. So then I had this like
families.
Exactly. They kind of put a little bit of pressure on you, but that was like in a way a good thing, because I worked so much harder, probably working on weekends, doing all of that, making sure my grades were really, really good. And then suddenly my grades got really, really good. And they were saying, and then this related in my head, if I work really hard just on studies and like memorizing and doing all of that, I'll get good grades. And I was like, okay, I just got to get good grades every time. Like just focus on grades and making sure I pass all my exams. Because at my school, back in Edinburgh, we had exams every single year from the age of 8. So it was like memorize, learn, and give it out. I think from that process, I lost a bit of my creativity during that time, because from being young, I was always really creative. Like I was drawing, painting, a lot of art stuff, even music as well. And from then being focused on grades and education, because they know that education is the foundation of everything, I value that so much that I, in the process, lost that creativity. I think this continued and reached its pinnacle during my GCSEs. I was studying my GCSEs and I was really unhappy with my teachers at the time. So I decided to apply for a sixth form college. That was not the one I was currently in. School, And I applied 6 months late. I was just got fed up at that point, and I was like, I'm sitting my GCSE exams and I'm stressed. Let me just apply to a new school because I'm not happy here. So I did that. I told my mum. She was like, you know what, go for it. If that's what you want, if you think you have better education somewhere else, go for it. My dad at the same time was like, where is this coming from? What do you mean? So I then get accepted into Brighton College, and I spent 2 years there. And it was actually at the end of my GCSEs, I was so focused on results that my results showed that I got like all 9s in sciences and maths and that, even economics as well. But I was like, this is good. I should just do medicine. Like that link of I should go apply. I love helping people. I know exactly, like my grades present that I'm good at science. Let me just do medicine. And I think it was the same surrounding of being in an education system where they tell you, okay, you can go do law, medicine, you can maybe do engineering. It was just that those people around me. So I was like, let me do medicine, and that's what I ended up doing in Brighton College, was focused on doing medicine.
There's a sort of like hierarchy of like these are the best jobs that you can do, and it's like if you have good grades you should do this,
exactly,
rather than it's like what is right for you in a way.
So you couldn't like put it
better. Oftentimes schools teach you what to think rather than how to think. It's like you should think like this. In GCSE, like these cells are doing this is why this is the case, rather than like, oh, why do you think like cells are doing this? So you continued to your sixth form in Brighton
So
College.
basically, I apologise to both my parents. I made them move again. So I got a day position rather than a boarding space. So I split up my family. Very, very crazy experience. But my mum and we moved down to Brighton for me to study, because I got accepted like 1 week into the school term. And my subjects were focused on medicine. And I told them, okay.
Biochem maths.
Yeah, biochem, maths, and economics. So I did economics because I was like, I actually love econ.
Oh,
maybe that was a little sign that was like creativity coming back in through business side of economics. Because I just loved it, and I was like, naturally, I just got it really quickly.
Yeah.
But I did that because I enjoyed the subject. I did the other 3 because I wanted to do medicine. So it was a mismatch in my thought process. And I was telling my parents, I'm going to do medicine. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to Brighton College, like get the best grades, go to Oxford and do medicine. And that's going to be my whole life planned out. Basically, my next 5-year plan, all done. I get to Brighton, and the first 2 terms, I did all the stuff they did for medicine. Because I think when you move to a different environment, you go for every single opportunity. Well, that's my mindset anyway. So I did like A&E club, I did volunteering, medical society, all of it. And I was slowly like losing that love for medicine. I just wasn't feeling very connected to it. But at the same time, I did all the entrepreneurial things that I didn't actually research about Brighton College when I applied. But I went for it because I was there, and they said, you have this entrepreneurship competition. You have to do it. You have to participate. There's no choice. So I did it. And it just clicked. Like everything clicked from there. And I was like, I'm like gaining that creativity back again.
Yeah.
I've found it. It was just hidden. And I've got that again.
Do you remember the specific moment when it clicked?
Yeah. So I ended up very vividly, actually. It was the finals of the competition. So I led my house, essentially. I was a founder of Clear Veda. It was a clean cosmetics company focusing on Ayurvedic ingredients. And we got to the finals. So the first round, with 14 houses all applying, you get the finals, which are 5 houses, and you pitch to Sarah Willingham. She's a dragon from Dragon's Den, alongside some other investors.
That's crazy.
And there's a chance to win 10 grand.
Wow.
And I was just like, this is
grand.
it. Yeah. It's so shared against 3 winners, so 3.3 each. And then I lost. So I got to the finals and I lost. And I was just shocked. I was like, I've put so much work into this, so much love into this, everything I put into this company. And I lost, and I was actually crying after, and I didn't really understand why. Like, why was I crying so much? It's just a project in a sense, and you only work on it for a few months. Why was I so upset? And then it clicked, and I was like, this is why. So after that entrepreneurship competition when I was in Brighton College, I knew that I had to choose the entrepreneurial route, and that's just something I was very into. So I applied for different programs outside of school, and there was this particular one called Sisterhood Summer. It's like an accelerator program in a sense, but it's designed to bring back that creativity from women aged between 16 to 20. So that young age bracket of those that want to create, of women that want to create their own company in the future. And from there, everything kind of just clicked. Everything was just matching. Everything was like, okay, this is entrepreneurship. This went really well. I did this future leaders competition. I won that. That went really well. And it's all related to entrepreneurship. So then the business I was building at Sisterhood Summer, that was something that a personal struggle I was going through. And after that course, I knew that I wanted to take a gap year to pursue that business idea.
I just want to say, like, I really admire the fact that you don't actually care about what people think. And I can tell because you decided to take a gap year. For me, out on this table, I think you took a gap year, didn't you? Yeah. And so I'm actually the other one out here. But it's about, like, because I've experienced it before. Everyone's experienced it. Like, what people think, oh, your friends, mum, what's she going to say, you know? But you didn't care, and you just went for it because you know it was right for you. You knew you went to that competition. You were like, oh, I love this thing. Clearly, there's something here. And you applied to that Sisterhood Summer. That step, I don't think many people could take it because of that, like, fear, almost external fear of other people judging you.
Yeah.
Especially like for you're like, oh, I'm going to study medicine.
Yeah.
It's like,
I know.
So especially like when parents hear that, it's like, oh, okay, right, they're committed, that's good.
Yeah. It's actually funny, my parents were against medicine. It's kind of
serious.
Crazy. Yeah, it's like
okay.
against, I guess you're surprised because I'm coming from an Indian background, but both my parents are entrepreneurial, and they saw that my skill set wasn't designed for medicine.
Yeah.
And I think they just knew inside from 5 years old of selling stuff. They just realized that it's entrepreneurship, but they were still providing me the resources, saying, yes, you can move to Brighton, you can study medicine, I wish you all the best with that. And they were providing me that support.
Yeah.
But through the whole process of actually moving, doing all the stuff, they noticed, well, my parents were right. It was actually entrepreneurship that I was designed to do, and they were happy with me going either way. But I think they were more supportive of me actually doing entrepreneurship.
That's awesome. Like, it's really important to have supportive parents.
For sure.
And it's lovely to hear that you have them. Going back to your sisterhood's startup accelerator.
Yeah.
You mentioned they helped you start, women start their own company essentially in the future. How was that? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. So it was a 2-week-long course in the heart of London, and it's fully funded. So you apply with a business idea. From that business idea, they select through a certain number of people. I think there was around 20 people on the course that I was on. And they don't tell you exactly what's going to happen. They just say that we're going to be helping you develop your business. So it's kind of going in like, oh, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But as soon as I arrived, I had to come from Edinburgh. So they fully funded a place for me to stay for the entire 2 weeks in London, including lunch as well. Everything was provided by them, because they believed that if you want to build a business, there shouldn't be any financial constraints holding you back, and it should just be you going for your dreams and chasing them.
Yeah.
And it was really, really incredible. The first day, you're surrounded by all these individuals that are so passionate about what they're building and want to create a social impact in the world. And that was just the best moment. So the first week, it was more getting market research done, understanding our customer segments, how does the financials of it work, kind of like building your business plan and different components and breaking it down. That was really fun, because I could learn all these different experiences, like what's a mission statement, a purpose statement, everything about the foundations of a company.
Yeah.
That was really fun, but I applied with an idea that was actually not mine. It was my brother's, because I knew I wanted to do the course. I just didn't have an idea that was connected. So that first week I was building my brother's idea, and they knew as well. I made sure to tell them.
What idea was it?
It was looking at different locker systems to hold luggages for like backpackers, essentially. So you have lockers across London maybe, or different parts of the world, where you can store your bags whilst you're backpacking, so you can actually explore the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was developing that. I was like, this is quite an interesting concept. And I remember researching, there's so many in London, and I was like, okay, geez, didn't know this was a big thing. But then it was that weekend, so because it's 2 weeks, it was the weekend where I had time to think about it. And that entire week I was researching that company and for that idea, and it wasn't clicking. But at the same time, I was struggling through a personal health problem. Also, it's known as polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's when you have these cysts on your ovaries that alter the function of your hormones. And essentially I experienced a lot of external symptoms like hair fall, daily migraines, and the main thing is really delayed and irregular periods, which affect women down the line through fertility issues and all sorts of things. And I remember getting diagnosed, and they said there's no cure, you can go on the pill, and I didn't want to do that. So I ended up changing my diet, and that was the main thing: diet, fitness, and even like meditation practices. And it was during that stage where it was probably like a year before I got diagnosed. By that time I was on Sisterhood Summer, I had reversed my PCOS.
Oh wow.
What is PCOS?
Sorry, polycystic ovarian syndrome.
You sure?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Sorry about
No.
the acronym. But yeah, PCOS was, it's not necessarily reversed. It's like you can get rid of all your pain. But then after I got tested again, and they said I no longer had PCOS.
What?
So it was kind of a really strange feeling. And that happened probably a few weeks before applying to Sisterhood Summer. So that second week, I was like, you know what? I should provide this to other people. So the second week, I developed a different business that was purely my own, and was like, how can we improve menstrual pain for other women?
That is amazing. And honestly, I'm just curious about the food, changing your diet. How did you know like that was the way?
How did I know? Yeah. So when you go to India, India was where I got diagnosed. There's 3 different systems of medicine. You have your Ayurvedic, allopathic, and homeopathic. Allopathic like the same as modern medicine, and then Ayurvedic's like the plant-based side. So I ended up going to the allopathic doctor where I got diagnosed, and he said just go on the pill, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So then I went to an Ayurvedic doctor after, and he told me, you've just got to have a bit more of a regimented lifestyle. You've got to make sure that you're eating healthy. That's what he told me, and working out a bit more frequently. I was lucky because in a sense, most women that get diagnosed with PCOS are very overweight and they struggle with that. So it was harder for me to get diagnosed because there's something called lean PCOS, which is what I had. So they said, make sure you're working out. And I was like, okay, fine, this is all great. So basically having a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
But then from there, understanding my symptoms, I got a full hormonal panel. I saw which hormones were imbalanced. Then I looked online for natural foods that are good for that specific hormone.
Yeah.
So to give an example, I had really high DHT hormones, which was causing my hair to fall out. And I found out spearmint tea is really good for that. So I started drinking spearmint tea every single morning from that day on. And these small 1% changes across my lifestyle, not just diet. I think diet's probably 80% of that progress. I started implementing more like reducing the ultra-processed foods that I had, eating more fermented foods. That was something that was really interesting. And it's funny, I didn't really realize what fermented foods were and how much I had it already, because I'm Indian. They have all these different chutneys and they're all fermented. And I never used to have them before, and now I started having them. So just understanding what's good for my gut and diversifying the microbiome, and that's how experience changes.
Yeah. No, in medical school we learn a lot. Well, we learn quite a bit about PCOS and especially the problems, especially in the UK, associated with it. A lot of it goes undiagnosed.
Yeah.
And especially women's health is like a massive area. And it is very much like one pill fits all solutions, which really shouldn't be the case in a way. And I take it probably took quite a while for you to find the diet that worked for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
To see the changes and stuff. So how long would you say it took for you to see changes on the experimentation periods?
Yeah, I would say probably 3 months until I
months.
saw physical changes. So my hair would stop falling out as frequently, my skin cleared up. But it was 6 months when I started to have regular cycles. So I had one period every 3 months or so, and then I started getting them every single month. But the biggest change was I stopped experiencing pain on my menstrual cycle entirely. So I used to be having pain before that. I'd experienced nausea from it, and now I don't have any pain. How is that possible?
Incredible.
That was the biggest change that I noticed.
What I'm so interested in is when you first were explaining your story, you said you got diagnosed with PCOS. Did you say there was no cure to it? Is that what you...
Yeah, there's no cure. There's
So-
only management.
So they said
systems.
to you there was no cure. There's just this pill, you have to take it. And then you went, and after a year, and you said, no, there is.
I don't want to say it's a cure because there's a risk that, I don't know for sure that I've cured it. There's a risk that it could come back. I don't really know that. It's not yet, but who knows if it's like 10 years down the line, all of a sudden it comes back. I don't know.
Yeah, but for now, like,
For now, yeah, it's...
You've just
I've
proved-
completely...
doctor's wrong.
Yeah, I guess so. We can manage
That's
it.
pretty
for
crazy.
sure,
Like
and
that
eliminate
to
your
think
pain.
about is pretty crazy, and it's almost like life's telling you, "Oh, no, he's putting you in a bad position," but you responded to that by just saying, "No, I don't know. I don't accept it."
Exactly, yeah, in a way.
And you did your own research,
Yeah,
and you
it's
solved
almost-
it yourself.
For sure. I think the pain was so big that I had to find it. It was like, if I wasn't going on the pill, what other option do I have?
Yeah,
And I think growing up in an Indian background where everyone has really thick, luxurious hair, that was the biggest social thing in my mind that
Right.
I felt, like a bit off
Yeah.
because I don't fit in. So that hair fall thing was something I'd be crying about, and that pain that was so big meant that I had to take that
Yeah.
change, and it was big enough to me. It was okay for me to change my entire lifestyle if it meant that my symptoms would improve.
Yeah. Was it difficult finding the right help, would you say?
100%. Yes,
Really difficult.
for sure. I mean, I experienced the symptoms for over a year, and the NHS had no idea what it was. And then I had to-
What would they say? Like,
They said
usually?
they asked me if I was pregnant, and I was like, no, I'm not pregnant. They'd ask a few questions like, sort of, what were the symptoms I was experiencing and how I've been dealing with them. But they just said there's nothing we can do. I did get an MRI scan taken because I had migraines every single day, but nothing came up. They checked my eyes, they checked my ears, everything was normal, blood
Yeah.
tests, all of it. So they just said, okay, well, we don't know what you have, sorry.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That must be quite difficult, especially because you're living in pain. Back then, like every month it can be very painful.
during school as well.
Yeah.
I
and
missed a few times.
Really?
Missed school from the pain, yeah.
Oh wow. And especially it's like it's sad to hear that it had to be that desperation that you're like, okay, I'm gonna try and change my diet. I'm gonna like do my own research rather than the doctor saying, oh well, we could experiment with this, or less put you on the trial on that. It's like you have to go out there and find it yourself.
Yeah, you literally took control of your life and said, no, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
But what was the name of the doctor you went in India? The one that did with like plant-based stuff?
Ayurvedic, yeah.
I don't know if I butchered that.
No, that's
but
great. You got
it seemed like they gave you a better solution than the first one, right?
Yeah.
Would you recommend that, like, for general, not the same condition, but also like
100%? Yeah, 100%. For sure. They kind of give you that viewpoint that your body is a box of medicines in itself. You can try and understand and manage it yourself first, and that should be your first thing that you should do, is understand your body from within. And if that doesn't work out, then you go into the pills. And then you can go to an allopathic doctor. So I think the order in which I probably should have done it is like gone to an Ayurvedic doctor first. The way that it works is they kind of focus on plant-based remedies. So they may even give you Ayurvedic types of medicine. So it's just purely 100% naturally derived Indian roots and plants. And they'll say this will try and support your internal condition, homeostasis, essentially.
I see. Okay. So now that like you've cured, I put in quotation marks, top wood, cured PCOS, I guess it's like you're now, am I correct in saying you're now building a solution to better the care of that? So are you able to tell us a bit about that,
sure.
please?
So I'm building this company called Papaya. It's all about trying to eliminate menstrual pain by understanding women's gut health. I did initially want to include fitness and diet and meditation, all of that together, and I realized that it's actually going a little bit too wide rather than deep. And I'd say around, as I mentioned earlier, about 80% of the improvements I saw were from changing my diet. So I decided to target that component individually and say I'm going to build a company where we can provide specific help for women's diets that struggle with menstrual pain. So if you have bloating, you'd follow this sort of planned diet. If you have PCOS, this is a diet we're going to help you follow. And we'd like to eventually expand this into other conditions like endometriosis and find more natural solutions and having different types of food into your own diet and changing it to help you experience improvements in your symptoms.
That's really awesome. And this whole idea really started from that sisterhood summer kind of, that's where, obviously you had the whole experience before that, but that's what took it to the next, almost like a catalyst, right? That's where the idea started. What was the first step that you took after you kind of had an idea of what you were going to do? What was the first step?
So after sisterhood?
Maybe it was in sisterhood.
So the first step I took after recognizing that I could provide this as a solution, I ended up building on that idea that second week of sisterhood and then pitched that idea to investors by the end. So the end was something called pitch night, and you essentially pitch to a room brimming with investors and see if people are interested in it. And I got a lot of feedback saying this is something I'm super interested in. I struggle with menstrual pain. So when you have that like verbal feedback that it's actually something that
validation,
validation, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And that's when I was considering taking a gap year. And I was saying, should I just do a gap year to pursue this idea?
Oh wow! Did you already have an offer from uni before that, or did you?
No, I didn't. So this was like summer.
Okay.
I hadn't applied to university yet, and I was thinking what to apply for university at that stage. While sisterhood was in the back of my mind, saying, "What are you going to do about this idea, though?"
But everything worked out perfectly.
I hope so. I mean, it's working out very well. Touch wood so far, and I'm loving the process of taking this gap year.
And I'm just gonna go into Papaya a bit more.
Yeah.
Where did the name come from?
Yeah. So with my journey with PCOS, when you get tested, you have to get a sonogram taken, an ultrasound taken.
Yeah.
On the sonogram, you'll see that you have these like sort of black circles on your ovaries, which show PCOS, the cysts on your ovaries. And with a papaya, you have these black seeds on the papaya. And so essentially I was trying to link the two and create that. I wanted to bring the founder's story into the business. So I was like, let me call it Papaya, because they'll ask why is it called Papaya? And the whole idea is if I was able to reverse my PCOS, essentially remove the black circles from my ovaries, it's symbolizing removing the seeds of a papaya.
Yeah, it's just deep.
It's connected,
Oh wow. How long did it take?
That's what I was thinking as well. That's exactly what I was thinking.
How long did it take you to get the idea?
Like, for example, that pitch night that you said,
Yeah.
you have everything. Like,
Oh
kind
no,
of-
it was called Veda Balance back then.
Oh right, this is the
Honestly,
thing that was.
this is something that I discovered in my gap year. So
Right.
probably the first month or so. And I was thinking, I just didn't like the name. It was too long. Veda Balance was just not it. Not even balance. I feel like balance is very generic and didn't want to go for it. So I was just thinking, what can I call it? And I just sat for probably 2 hours. I did have nothing on me, and I was just thinking about different names I could call it.
Did you have a process of thinking
Yeah.
of the names?
Yeah, so I was looking at words that link with menstrual cycles, like sinking or something like that, and nothing was working. I just didn't like it. And then I thought, why don't I look at other companies? What have they called their businesses? Like the most famous businesses, what are they called?
Apple.
Amazon, Apple.
Random.
I was like, Apple. Why
Yeah.
is Apple called
Yeah.
Apple? I asked ChatGPT, and he was saying that he was at this apple farm and something happened, and he had like a personal story to it.
I thought it was no, I'm probably wrong. I was gonna say Alan Turing like took a bite out of the apple.
Oh, could be. I'm not
I don't
sure.
know. It's probably
I
the
can't remember
Apple
exactly
farm.
what it was. So I was just like thinking, okay, he's linked Apple to a personal situation.
Yeah.
And I asked myself, what's my favorite fruit? And it was a papaya. And I think everything just worked out from there. And I said, well, this is actually the perfect name. It just links so nicely to PCOS.
That's actually very interesting. And for anyone watching, maybe try it out. Like,
Yeah.
just think of, instead of trying to create this perfect name, just look at what someone else has done and
Yeah,
take
100%,
inspiration from it
exactly.
almost.
I'd agree. I think that's with any startup, instead of reinventing the wheel, look at what's working, what's not working, and you can build your own company from there.
So now you finish your sisterhood, right? You're building the startup. It's your gap year. Your parents supporting you. Where are you staying at this time?
I'm staying in London now.
In
So
London.
I live in Edinburgh, but I'm spending the next 3 months. Yeah, 3 months in London.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow. And whilst you're in London, right? I know personally because I've known you for a while.
Yeah.
And also on your LinkedIn, it says that you're part of Kickstart Global.
Yeah.
So how did that start?
Yeah, so the start of my gap year, I told myself all the way the second year of A-levels, I was like, yeah, I'm going to take a gap year to build my own business.
Yeah.
Then the start of my gap year, I was like, oh, what am I doing? What have I done? It almost took me about 2 months to settle in, to understand what I'm going to do. But I knew that I had to find something to do and like provide me that guidance. Sisterhood Summer, like the founders of Sisterhood, I was constantly in touch with them. They were trying to give me advice and guide me.
Just 2 weeks, right? You needed
Yeah,
something.
I need something a bit deeper, and they're actually incredible. If you want to look at them, they're super, super great. They were helping me and saying, well, this is the structure. You have to build your minimum viable product, then you have to build this and then do that and that. And like the steps of it, I didn't know before. So then I was like, okay, I need to build my minimum viable product. What is that? How can I discover what it looks like? So I looked online, projects to help you build your minimum viable product. Kickstart Global came right to the top. I was like, okay, let me read about this company. And then they had a new thing of Founders Under 24 Fellowship. And this seemed really, really cool. Like they provide you all the resources. They provide you masterclasses with CEOs of companies. You have your own mentor. You have co-building. There's 40 incredible other founders with you. So it's providing that environment that you need to essentially build a company. Because at home, as I'm staying with my family, I'm quite laid back, I'm relaxed, not really focusing on business that much. And then when you move to a different environment, if you're surrounded by all these other founders, I think that would help you a lot more in advance what your business is supposed to look like, and you learn in that process. So I applied and got in, and now I'm here.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Like, it's a
In a
type.
nutshell.
It's the type of thing I think Kickstart they have on their slogans, like we find outliers or something, or like the 0.001%.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in entrepreneurship, it can be quite a lonely place. Especially, or do you have a co-founder or are you?
No, I don't actually.
No, you don't.
No,
Yeah,
no
it's
co-founder
like
at the moment.
it's the type of thing that is like you're trying to build it yourself, and it's so daunting, isn't it? Like having this idea that can literally change the world.
Yeah.
And then being able to surround yourself with other people trying to do the same thing, it suddenly seems a lot more possible.
Did you ever think about getting a co-founder? Like,
I did, yeah. So as I was like applying for Kickstart,
yeah.
I was like, oh, this is just so lonely doing it on my own. And I don't have anyone to talk to about this. Like, I need someone to just back information off of and ideas and all of that. And I didn't have that person. So as I got into Kickstart, one of the questions they asked was like, are you looking for a co-founder? And I was like, yes, I am. I definitely am. I'm 100% open to the idea. And that was one of the interview questions to get into the place. And they were saying, well, we can help you find that co-founder. So I was looking for co-founders as I got into Kickstart, and there were so many people I connected with. There's so many other founders on this course that are building companies that are focused on improving women's menstrual cycle.
Really?
One in particular that I'm very close friends with. But I also discovered with a co-founder, you have to resonate on a different level to back ideas off of. You can't just find someone that's interested in the concept and bring them on as a co-founder.
Yeah.
So I think I wasn't ready for that to happen. And as I was explaining the idea, it was more that we want to build different businesses and we'll build together and we'll help each other along the way. But it's not something we're building the same idea into one.
I get that, and the reason I get it because your startup stemmed from personal experience. Maybe their startup stemmed from personal experience.
Exactly, yeah.
They're not the same.
Very true.
And so that kind of thing that's driving you might not be the same for the other person. I've seen it in other startups as well, and I agree with you. Maybe even like some of the greatest brands, greatest companies, they don't have a co-founder, and it's just because it's almost their journey, like Harry was saying as well. It's their journey. But I wanted to ask more about like what was the most valuable thing that you got out of Kickstart? If you had to choose one, like, what was the most valuable?
That's a great question. I can't really think I can pinpoint one thing that's significantly changed. I think it's just the environment. By actually collecting people together, that has a huge impact. By just bringing people that are interested in the same sort of stuff. The first day I met them was the first day I actually moved. I was actually commuting the first month or so back from Edinburgh to London. And the very first day I met everyone, it was just like you're meant to be there. That environment that like, not even meant as in like you own a company or like you're trying to build a company, but it was like the conversations that you have are so deep and like really, really enjoyable, which aren't the daily conversations that you have with people. So I think just providing that environment of everyone's like-minded people. And I didn't really think that was extremely valuable. Growing up and even in my gap year, I was like, oh, okay, you have friends and that environment, but really that was just everything.
Yeah, it's like the type of people that you didn't know existed in a way.
That's
and
so
then
true.
I was like,
you guys are phrasing this better than me, guys.
you go into your room and then it's like, all right, I might have to put on like a sort of mask.
Yeah,
in a way.
It was like there was no mask. It was just myself, and they'd tell you like, okay, well, this idea is pretty bad because this doesn't work. Have you ever considered talking about the technical side of building? They asked me a question like, are you building hardware or software? And I was like, what is that?
Never thought that.
Are you doing B2B or B2C? And I'm like, okay, these are a lot of new terms. And even the first day, I was like, this is so cool to even talk about this stuff.
It's almost enlightening perspectives, new perspectives you're gaining from people.
Exciting.
Was it ever
Very
like,
exciting.
because I know at uni, like it was almost like a uni experience, like a mini uni experience for you, like meeting all these new people.
Yeah.
It was just on steroids because it was like all entrepreneurial people.
So true.
But like at uni, from personal experience, like you have the fresher conversation. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's like that first awkward conversation you have with a random person you never meet. And
What's
you
your
never
degree?
and you never see them again in your whole until like the final year, right? You're like, oh, I saw you that 1 week, first week.
Yeah.
But like, was there ever anything like that at Kickstart, or was it all natural? It flowed nicely.
I think the starter sentence, I think similar to you, it's like when you meet someone, you say, what's your degree? This was like, what are you building? Like that was the difference. So it didn't even feel like, it felt like, oh, this is exciting. I can go into something I'm really passionate about.
That's so much more exciting, I'm not going to lie. Like,
So
what are you building?
And I noticed this, I only noticed this when I was at that Shard event, or the networking event earlier. And I was going to people and I was like, oh, are you building anything? And someone would say yes, some of them would say no. But all the questions I was asked was like, what degree are you studying?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, why are people asking me this? And I had a conversation with a friend after, comparing the two. I was like, is this the difference between like university and actually building a startup? Like what's the disconnect?
I think it's like people go with the easiest common ground in a way.
Yeah.
Also, I think like the freshers conversation.
You just don't know what to say.
It's like two questions. It's like, what degree do you study? And then someone says like, Mehta says,
name,
me too.
Is your name first? Wait, well, I'll just bring close. Is your name first? But then usually, like, you try to remember the name, you never work.
You never work.
Exactly.
And then it's like, what degree do you study? And if it's at uni, usually what they ask is like, what accommodation you're staying at. And then there's nothing to say after that, so you move on to the next question.
Yeah, I guess for like our viewers that are wanting to get that sort of experience into entrepreneurship, do you have any advice for them to try and surround themselves with like-minded people?
I think the best advice I'd give is do the things that you would see entrepreneurs do. If it would be in going to networking events is one thing. If it's applying for different extracurricular related things, sorry, rephrasing. Even that Sister at Summer thing, you just gotta like research this stuff. If you truly want to go into entrepreneurship, do the activities that an entrepreneur would do.
I so agree with that.
And you'll meet the people.
100%. Because it's like magnets, right? As in like attracts like. And I feel like with not just entrepreneurship, with absolutely anything, it's like, what would that sort of person do? If you're wanting to beat a, let's say, 5K time as a runner, it's like, what would a professional athlete do? What would their mindset be like? It'll be like, let's keep on pushing. For an entrepreneur, it'd be like, what would an entrepreneur do? Oh, they'll go to networking events. They would actually try and build something.
And similar to what I'm just adding to what Reese said, and I read this in a book, it's like building heroes, creating heroes, thinking who's the best, who's doing the best in this industry, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether you're saying like 5K, who's doing the best, and almost just copying what they do.
In
like,
a sense, yeah.
Because if they've done it and you know what they've done, if you do it and really work hard at it, you'll get somewhere. And like you said with these networking events, one thing I did want to ask was actually, you mentioned networking. Me and Reese have had a conversation as well about networking events. Because how do you get the most value out of a conversation of these events?
Ask the questions that no one else asks. That's the one that differentiates you from anyone else. Rather than start the conversation like, hi, how are you? What do you study? Just ask them something random, something like really actually deep. And don't be worried about if they're going to judge you or not. Because the people that actually respond, some people maybe have time to think about it, which is great if they're thinking about it to give you a good response. Don't be worried about, oh, this is a strange question to ask. Like one thing I got asked is like, what's the craziest thing you did last week? That was like, oh, that's such a refreshing thing to ask. And then you'll know what type of person they are. And you'll realize if you want to connect with them further, you can. And if you don't, then that's fine as well. You've got to know that part of someone that no one else will probably know about or be too scared to ask about.
So crazy.
I think it's the type of thing, it's like just ask it.
Yeah.
It's like, because there's so many, like all the good conversations that, I don't know for you, but for me, I remember it's the deep conversations, right? But I don't know how they started. It's like, if you just jump straight into it, sure, like the person might say, oh, that's taken me back a bit, but often like people don't remember that. But they remember how they feel, and they remember those deep conversations, those meaningful conversations. It's not superficial. It's just like, what's your name?
Like small talk.
Yeah,
I agree. It's very much trying to get into that deeper level. The best way to do it is just maybe start with a compliment or something that you're interested in. Like that could be a way of getting to know them a bit better and making them drop the barriers a little bit more, because I do get the idea of asking them a question out of the bat is kind of tricky. Like something I noticed when I was doing consumer research, I'd go shopping with strangers and I'd ask them, initially I started with like, do you have any menstrual pain? Like no one's gonna answer that. No one's gonna answer that. So then I'd ease into them saying, oh, I actually love your coat. Would it be cool if I'm able to ask you a few questions on this project I'm working on? And they'll like, get an
almost
idea
like
of who you are.
signposting. We have this in medicine, like almost like slight warning before you go straight into it. It's like almost warming up. What you said, Reese, I'm just going to touch. You said like just ask it, right? I can imagine that on a t-shirt, and I'd wear that to every networking event and put it on the back. Just ask my question. Just ask it. You know. But you mentioned your market research, right? But that was physical market research. So you're going shopping with strangers. Never heard of that before. Could you explain a little bit? Was this part of Kickstart?
No, actually. Well, not really.
Okay.
50-50. So I have my own mentor that Kickstart provide me, and he's been absolutely incredible throughout this process. But from the friends that I made on Kickstart Global, there's 4 of us girls that are all together. We always hang out together. We're building things together. And I had this idea of, what if we make vision boards? We all come together, we make vision boards for 2025. What do we want to be? And we made 2 different ones. We had a personal one and we had a business one. And our business one, we were thinking about, what is the type of people that we want to be in the entrepreneurial space, which led to the conversation of, what if we do a 75 hard but for business women? And so we had to make a list of all the things we're going to do every single day, or maybe every single week, that would allow us to become the best creator for us. One of the things that were on my list was that I'm always quite scared with going out of that comfort zone, and procrastinate quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I told them this, and I had the idea on my 75 hard for entrepreneurship. If I have an idea, I'm going to execute it within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And we had a group chat, and we were saying that whatever idea you have that you actually think is going to provide value, because I do understand if you had every idea come into your mind and if you execute all of them, you wouldn't have any time in the day. But any idea that you think would actually provide really significant value, message it on the group chat, and they'll set a timer on the clock with 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
So the idea I had was I want to go up to strangers and go in person, because talking about your menstrual cycle is very, very personal. Not many people are going to talk about it online or even explore the conversation entirely. So I wanted to see how are women's diets. How do women shop in the grocery store? Do they focus on their menstrual cycle when they're shopping, if it's PCOS, because that's something that I look at? Is it something to do with other health things health goals that they're trying to achieve? So I thought the best way to do it is go in person, look for women that have healthy looking shopping trolleys, like filled with vegetables and fruits, and just ask them. And during the process, I'd ask them questions like, why do you eat like this? How long have you been eating like this? And feeding off their responses and asking questions based on that. And that's how you get the real feedback, and seeing if it's a problem that your company is actually trying to solve or not, and how can it be improved.
Wow, that is, first of all, yeah, that's like, kudos to you. That was like peak for me, like social anxiety, just approaching a stranger.
Same. I was shaking when I got there, and I got there, and it was so much fun. I'd never experienced it.
Yeah. We're just coming towards the end of the podcast, but I'll start with like a penultimate question, if that's okay. And with like that experience of just approaching someone, like completely coldly, would you say that really changed your perspective on just approaching people in general?
Yeah. It's been insane. So I think people aren't that scared. In a sense, the ones that you go to, you'll get their honest feedback on how they react, and I think it provides you a scenario of, if you meet a person that does this, here's how you should react. So in a sense, you're kind of prepared. If you meet someone else and you're approaching someone else, you can feed off their reaction and adjust to make the conversation much more comfortable.
As a last question, Tanya, thank you very much for joining us, but as a last question,
for having me,
what is one piece of advice that you give to anyone watching, whatever they're doing right now, sitting at home? One thing they should do right now, kind of similar to your 75 hard or 24-hour challenge. Right now, they're sitting there on a laptop. What should they do to get one step closer to building their dream startup?
So if you feel like you're struggling in the place that you're in the environment that you're in, change your environment. So that's going to be either, like you mentioned, like joining a community, or it's going to be if you're sitting inside in your laptop and you're working like in your laptop in your room and the door's closed, go outside. Just go outside, talk to people, do something that scares you, something that you feel like, oh, this is a bit out of place. Changing that environment will change your outcome, and that's going to lead to small or significant improvements. But that's a starting stone. That's a stepping stone to the next thing, because you'll maybe have a conversation, maybe go on a walk, something you don't usually do.
Yeah.
Maybe you meet someone that's walking their dog and say, oh, what's a problem you're facing with your dog? You know, any small things that you try, you'll get some sort of experience and feedback from that, which will give you more confidence and more of that encouragement and mental support to try the next big thing or try something else that scares you. So the small steps of being scared and putting yourself in environments that you don't usually expect yourself.
What a wonderful answer. Thank you very much for joining us,
Thank
Tanya.
you so
We've loved
much.
having you on. Anything that you want to say that Papaya is doing currently, feel free to say it. Anything at all.
Let me
feel free.
think about it.
Anything.
So right now with Papaya, I'm cooking my own meals and delivering it to women directly in student accommodations, but also private accommodations. So if you're interested in food that's just £6 per meal.
Awesome. Remember to go check Tanya out on Instagram and check us out as well. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really enjoyable.